Joining us today on behalf of the full 580 Café Wesley Foundation serving UCLA. We are grateful for this opportunity to share what Pastor Molly talked about today. How it was like, sowing the seeds of God's love and compassion and grace. The active ways that we as those who follow United Methodist, or we who are just good God's people, share the abundance and blessing and grow in mercy and kindness and love together. So this is your opportunity to learn a little bit more about what we do from the people who actually know more about it than even myself. That would be the students and the board. And so I just want them to raise their hands if you're a student or a board activist. Yay! And this is a small picture of the breadth and depth of the experience and the story. So we're going to share our stories, our hopes, and our dreams. 580, as you know, came into being in 2010, but long before that, Wesley Foundation started at UCLA in 1927. So we are actually the older stepsister to Westwood Community Church then, and now Westwood Church. So we have a long story of connection to Westwood, and we want to share with you what that looks like today and how we continue to help grow and develop spiritual leaders, faithful people, and just God's beloved community here amidst our students and ourselves. And so that's what I want to say, and I'm going to thank each and every one of you one more time for participating in this and for being part of that circle of care and grace that helps us persist and sustain God's love in this time and in this space. I would like to introduce to you somebody you all know pretty well, the Reverend Dr. Sharon Rhodes-Wickett, who is one of our board members, longtime supporter, and someone who understands what it means to grow people in God's love. So Sharon.
Well, thank you. Jean invited some of us to share why we're on the board. Why would we do this? And so the answer is everything you heard in church today.
Yes. Amen.
It's like, hello, this is exactly what I was thinking about in terms of who were mentors and what that's meant in my life. And I feel incredibly fortunate, blessed, gifted by so many amazing mentors through the church. Throughout my entire life. I can't imagine what my life would be without those who, just as Molly said, loved me and loved me into being. And one of those places was campus ministry, Wesley Foundation serving Cal State Long Beach. I wasn't a student at Long Beach, I was a student at a community college at the time, but I hooked up with this campus ministry and feel like it probably saved my life. That sounds a little dramatic, but I think it's kind of true. And it was an important community. So there were two campus pastors, campus ministers, who made all the difference in my life. I'm still in touch with one, Nan Self. Some of you may know her or have heard of her.
Yes.
And she refers to some of us as her pups. So at my age, I'm happy to be anybody's pup. But we had a weekly dinner. So the meal, I was thinking about that, the meal was part of it. It was in the turbulent late 60s where some of us felt like the church was out of it and stupid and who needs it. But the Wesley Foundation group was a place to come and be real with one another. That was, a really important thing. And today I wore my "War is not healthy for children and other living things," which we wore back then, right?
Dating ourselves. Yeah.
So I still have it, of course. And it was an extremely formative time, which had everything to do with shaping me and helping me be clear about my values. Out of that experience, and there have been so many mentors that in my retirement years, supporting those ministries that continue to nurture young folks who continue to nurture and reach out to folks who may feel like they are in the margins, on the margins, who maybe don't have a place where they fit. That's where I want to be supporting. That's where I want to give to. That's what I want to give my time to and my money, because that's so important. I mean, it really, really makes a difference. So when Jean asked me to be on the board, it was like, well, I don't know what I can do, but yes. Yes, I will be part of this, and I really hope that Westwood UMC will continue to be supportive and to be a place where this mission is valued, this ministry is valued, because it's about relationships and deep compassion and the love of God made manifest in very concrete and special ways. But there are other folks that can tell you a lot more than I, so I am done. Thank you.
So thank you, Sharon, and it is important to share those stories, the experiences, and what's happening now, but it's built on a legacy of nurture and care. So much of what we do is not new or different. It's just taking what has been the truth and roots of our grace and kindness and bringing them forward into a new world. So I'm going to introduce to you now our next speaker is Emily Wang, who is an undergraduate student, and she's going to tell you her experience of 580. So Emily. Yeah, perfect.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today, especially for someone like me who didn't grow up going to church on Sundays. This is such a beautiful church and a loving community, and I am grateful for the opportunity to share this space with you. My name is Emily Wang. I was born into a traditional family in a small town in central China. Unfortunately, my father was disappointed when he found out I was a girl. And he sent me and my mother back to my mother's family. I was worthless in his eyes. Growing up, I lived a typical life for Chinese girl. I got married, had a child, and took care of the family. I wasn't happy. However, 6 years ago, I was fortunate enough to come to the United States and start to take English as a second language classes at El Camino College. Eventually, I transferred to UCLA. It was during the transfer summer program at UCLA that I discovered 580 Café. I was taking a community psychology class, and one of the group was working on a research project about food insecurity among students who didn't have a meal plan. On August 24, 2022, we visited 580 for lunch and sat at the table on the patio. The sun was shining, the wind was soft, and the air filled with love and energy. I was impressed by the kindness and hospitality shown to us by Jean and Samuel. And I knew I wanted to be part of this community. I went back to 580 a few days later. Jean asked me to join the student intern team. I said yes right away. Over the past few months, I have witnessed the magic that happened at 580. The church's location across the street from the campus, combined with the support of the church members and the community, makes 580 a special place. The team of the student intern come from diverse backgrounds and bring different skills and perspectives to the table. But we are united by our shared purpose of making 580 a welcoming and inclusive space for everyone. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we have the privilege of enjoying meals cooked by members of the community. And I have to say, our Chris is amazing. She always uses fresh ingredients to create delicious meals that bring joy to everyone who eats them. And her cakes are the best and always make my day. Everyone will ask, why the meal at 580 always tastes so good? I think it's because they are made with love and care.
Yes.
We also have a diverse group of people who come to 580. Students, faculty, and staff. It feels like working in the United Nations at times with such a diverse group of people coming together. And we even have pets visit us. I remember last time we have a dog and a bird visit us at the same day. And we couldn't decide who's cuter. But we know who is the cutest in our 580 team, Jean. She's the heart of our community and brings us all together, making 580 a true home for everyone. And I can't say enough thank you to her. For me, 580 is more than just a community space. It's my chosen family, my home, and what keeps me going during the tough times. And more important, it is the safety net that I have been creating for my daughter since we are each other's only. In the end, it's a place like 580 that full of love and care makes our community, our world, a better place. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to come to this space and share a wonderful morning with all of you. Thank you and have a lovely day.
So, we continue on, and I will bring up the enormously popular Chris Cooks, who is a member at St. Albans, who feeds us from the love in her heart and the spirit she brings to us. So Chris Mason, please join us.
Well, first of all, how can I follow that? I mean, that was beautiful. Thank you. So my name is Chris Mason. I'm actually on a different team. I'm a member at St. Albans, so I'm Episcopalian. But when I became aware of 580 on our campus and met Jean, I couldn't believe our luck that we would be so lucky to have a program right on our doorstep that we could get involved in and help. And I had been doing some volunteer work after I left my job, and that shut down with COVID. And I said to Jean, as sort of things were opening up, would there be any, a meal that I could make or anything I could do for the students? And she said, yep. We decided that I would cook lunch every Tuesday, which I started to do. And I said to Jean, the one thing I really wanted to do was cook with love, but also I wanted to present it like I had the students at my house for a dinner party or for a nice lunch. And so I wanted it to be beautiful as well as healthy and a bit special. So I try to do that. But one of the lovely things that's happened is a couple of vendors at the Brentwood Farmers Market on a Sunday have started donating leftover veg and fruit. So that's been a wonderful thing for me to incorporate in the Tuesday lunch, and sort of seems like a win-win. That's a lovely organic things that we're getting donated, and in turn that can be passed on to our beautiful students. And I know Jean said to maybe just tell something from the heart and something that touched me. Well, many things have touched me because a number of students have shared their stories with me, which have been, I was very touched that they would do that. But there's one particular student who, she came before she started freshman year, and she started right about when I started cooking lunch. And she was so shy and so nervous, and she wouldn't eat anything, and she couldn't even make eye contact. She was just so shy. And over the time since then, which is about a year and a half, she has just, with the love and support and mentorship and friendships that she's formed at 580, she's just blossomed, and to the point now where she sees me, she'll give me a big hug, and she's so involved with everybody. And I think she's, you know, I'm talking about, she's an intern, I think now, and she's so involved and so good. And that just, the fact that, you know, one of many stories like that, but to see this beautiful young girl who has had a pretty crappy time, just be happy and feel loved. And I know that so many others do as well, as do I when I'm there. So thank you, Jean, for inviting me and for asking me to be on the board.
Thank you. So we're going to bring another student to keep the fun rolling. Samuel Morales is going to share with us his experience as an international student and also a board member, and works with LIFT, the Living into the Future Foundation. So he has connected beyond just what goes on at 580. And I want to just point that out, that the students who come don't just come and take. They are out there doing all kinds of incredible things on campus, in the community, and in their relationships. So Samuel.
And thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. My name is Samuel Baron Morales, and I'm a senior international student at UCLA, majoring in political science, and I came from Colombia. I first came across 580 Café as a student in need of help. The systemic challenges that both the United States Citizenship Service and UCLA enable for international students make it so that we are ineligible to get state-backed resources, which includes financial aids for very inflated tuition costs, healthcare, call fresh, and many more. The government also limits our ability to work by making it illegal for us to work more than 20 hours per week, and not allowing us to work for another employer or other than the institution that we are enrolled in. This limits our professional development opportunities as well as our ability to work and afford tuition at the same time. If and when international students struggle academically or financially, issues such as food insecurity, shelter, and health arise rather quickly, but 580 has seen firsthand how this issue continues to increase. Generally, international students face the constant fear of losing their student visa status and having to leave their country or be deported for seeking help from the same government that profits and also collects taxes on us. The Wesley Foundation serving UCLA, or 580 Café as it's better known within the student community, addresses that problem exactly. It recognizes the value and capacity for growth of underrepresented and underserved members of the student community without allowing the systemic challenges they face to define their path and who they are. By providing around 200 weekly student-led programs for academic development and health, food pantries, academic and professional resources, but most importantly, a place to build and engage in beloved community, 580 Café is an essential resource for hundreds of students that are often discriminated against and left behind because of their immigration status, financial circumstances, sexual orientation, beliefs, or health conditions. After being motivated by the not so easy to find and beautiful benevolent nature of 580's Café work in the community in the time that I needed it the most, as well as the enormous support that I received from the organization's members and our executive director, Jean Rose Smith, I joined 580 Café as an intern over the summer and became a member of the organization's board after finishing my internship. I moved to the United States 3 years ago when I was 17 years old. I came to the country with the dream of becoming an attorney to help underserved and underrepresented communities have a voice and get the justice they are often restrained from here in the United States. When multiple difficult circumstances started challenging my ability to make that dream a reality by being able to continue my studies at UCLA, 580 did for me what I always wanted to do for other people. It gave me a voice and it helped me realign with my purpose in the community. I'll never forget the day that I called my mother to tell her that I did not have to quit my studies thanks to the support that 580 provided to me. The many days in which 580 has given me a plate of food after having had none for hours, or the multiple occasions where because of 580 I had someone to hug and talk to without the fear of being judged or discarded. Here today, less than a month away from graduating, about a year early from UCLA, I want to say thank you. I will be eternally grateful to our interns and board members for making 580 what it is, but also to you. You, who through your generosity and continued support, continue to address many of these increasing systemic challenges and make this nurturing home and 580 Cafe possible for us. So thank you, United Methodist Church. It's an honor to be here.
All right.
So, take a deep breath in. Let's just take a moment to let some of this sink in. The goodness, the story, the grace of God that is being offered in ways that we don't always see results from immediately, but I think you're seeing kindness in action, and that's really how we live our faith. And so now I'm going to invite another board member, John. Not John. Guy. Yep. That guy. He's going to join us. Guy is a member of West LA United Methodist Church. He is one of our benevolent friends. Somebody I get to joke around with a lot. And I'll let him tell you his story and his insights, because that's what he does.
Thanks, Jane.
John.
So people say, "Hey, Guy," and I assume that I either know them or I forgot them. But my name is Guy. My husband John and I moved to Los Angeles about 5.5 years ago, and we were looking for a congregation that was really welcoming to us, and we found that in West LA UMC. I met Jean in our congregation, Reverend Janet Cromwell. They invited me to the first event that I went to for 580, and I gotta say, the first impression that I had was, I wish I would have had a 580 Cafe to go to when I was in college. You know, I was part of a denomination that really was not welcoming. It really condemned sort of who I was. And, when Reverend Molly was talking about the sermon today and saying, who inspired you or who built your faith, there were several people who were just a little bit brave that helped me just a little bit. They provided some space for me, or a kind word, someone to model or mentor me. And I just found that so helpful in my life. And so when I went to that first 580 event, I heard one of the students do a poetry reading and talk about her experience. The students celebrate and dance, talk about their love of God, and that their foundation of belief that every one of God's children is equal. And just the embodiment of 580 and its ability to execute on celebrating diversity, to provide equity, to provide just a little help, just a meal, so someone can continue their studies. And then, inclusion, it is a true community that follows people, and I'm just so impressed with all of the students and alumni, the board members and the other allies who help. I see some of the alumni go into the work world, and they're going to be a leader and a mentor for people who never had that, like me, at least in my first couple of jobs, where I could look to and say, that's someone I respect, who embodies diversity and who wants people that are a little bit different, or who might not be considered the mainstream, the ability to flourish. So I couldn't be more thrilled that I have the ability to be part of the 580 Cafe. And I'm glad that I have this ability to come here and share the sermon, a little bit of food, some coffee, and this time with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. So it's Guy and John. See, but the other people, it just hits my brain, because now the real key is our next speaker will be named John. So it's like, okay, I can do this. So again, what we try to do at 580 is to acknowledge and celebrate who we are, whatever our culture, our background, or belief. Welcome people in and acknowledge the sacred worth and integrity and value of each life there, and help support their capacities. And not everybody flourishes in that, though I can't think of one that didn't. They may be challenged by the perceptions they were led to believe of what church was, where they couldn't be who they were, or where they were not allowed to engage in questions or wonderment, or the amazement of interfaith conversations with Palestinians and Jews and people from Iran. Have different and hard conversations, but have them around food and around love. to build those bonds. So I'm going to invite John, who represents for us our graduate, PhD students, as well as coming from a Methodist background. So it's not, we have that element to all the threads are there that we weave together. So John Hopper, some of you have seen him here, some of you have seen him other places.
Well, how do you say, some of you have seen him here, some of you have seen him other places. I think one of my qualities is I am a church hopper.
Literally.
My last name's also Hopper, so it's very good fun. So I grew up in the Methodist church. That's, my parents were very strong Methodists. I think both my grandparents were as well. So like that was what it was. When I went to college, though, I was very aware of the fact that I had grown up in a church. And that there's is this the church for me, or is this the church I grew up in? And the school I went to didn't have much of a Methodist ministry. It actually did, but it was all Korean Methodist in Korea, which is amazing. Just I couldn't really do anything with them because I don't speak Korean. What was there was an amazing Episcopalian ministry. And I very much got to learn a lot about, what the pre-Methodists were before we kind of broke off. I also did some work with some other interdenominational groups, and really, I learned that I really did like Methodism, and so I had been born into I've been luckily born into a church that matched myself. But I also learned that it was but there's some really cool things about the Episcopalian ministry, and there's some cool things that the Presbyterians do. And I had a friend who did a lot of Quaker services, and there was a nearby Quaker meeting house, so we went there occasionally. So I'm Methodist, but also I love just hopping around. And
That's very Methodist to do that.
You see, when I started doing this and realized the Methodists were the ones that were doing, I kind of realized, oh wow, I was lucky. But when I found 580, it was I found you on both, I think it was this website, but also on St. Alban's website, and I was like, I've been waffling between the Episcopalians and Methodists, and they both have the same ministry. This is pretty good. So that's how I came here. And I just love the community because we are Christian. We fundamentally are in our ways that we're giving food, giving love, giving resources, sharing ideas and thoughts, and just being a safe space. But we aren't so we were very Christian, we were very loving, but we don't always show that initially. And people come in and then they'll learn, and we won't bait and switch people because it's not, oh, you're Christian, I should leave. It's oh, you're Christian, and the reason you're Christian is because you're loving, and that's the way you're Christian. We're not throwing Christ at people, we are being Christ to people. And I really like that because, as I said, I was involved with some Episcopalian, also some interdenominational groups in my undergrad, and sometimes I felt like we were bait and switching people. We were being very loving, we were being very great, and then we also, there was a unspoken, sometimes, still there kind of thought of, if you make connections, then you can start sharing the gospel. And I feel like 580, we share the gospel, but we don't pull out, 1 John or whatever. We just provide love. And that's something I really cherish about this community is we share the gospel, but we don't preach it, we don't read it, we just do it. And that's if you ask me what a Christian should do, so.
Thank you. Thanks, John. So that was a bit of a taste of 580. I would love to open it up for questions or for comments, but just to remind you that we are part of this church. We are housed here. This is when we were defunded by the annual conference in 2018. There was a huge question of whether we would even continue to exist or survive, given the fact that most of our operating expenses were annual conference related. And because of the determination of the board, and so I'm looking out at Sharon and Martin, who has been with us since I've been here 14 years. We did give him a year or two off for good behavior, but somehow he slipped and he's back on the board. So independence is real, and Martin can speak to that. Because the board understood the value, because people like Sharon, who had experience of campus ministry, who said, it saved her life. That's what we do. We don't save lives for Jesus, we save lives of people by offering them Christ in ways, as John said, we embody Christ. We don't push, we don't force. And so because the board saw this as critical to the ongoing sustainability of the United Methodist Church, this is a way where we can live out who we are as Christians and as God's beloved community, no matter what our background or story is. So the board, together with myself and students, really worked to create this space. Westwood then created the opportunity for us to have a shelter, to be allowed to be nurtured and grown without the fear of being cut off and lose this very vital ministry, this ongoing ministry since 27. And so that has been perhaps one of the best gifts you have offered, is that opportunity to stay within the Methodist fold, but to continue, as our new bishop says, being an edge dweller, being on that space where the church doesn't always know it should be or want to be, where it wants to be in the comfort of the congregation, the comfort of the pew and what we know, but allowing us to reach and seek and serve God in ways that are meaningful. And I think you've heard that. We have, if you were able to watch our video for ending spiritual and physical hunger, that has been the wheelhouse of where we started, knowing that's what Jesus did. He ate with people, whoever he could find, and spoke with them and treated them with care. And in that video, you notice that Kyle was highlighted, and another face from Westwood, Yasmin, who was in the children's ministry. Prior to Yasmin, there was Sadie Valencia. Some of you know her. Some of you know her from West LA. Priscilla Radu. So we have an ongoing relationship here. And your support and encouragement means the world to us, because it means on that campus, we have the opportunity to live out this call to grow in faith together, to offer Christ in ways that are meaningful and authentic, and they celebrate. We don't just mourn and yell, woe is me. We have an awful lot of good times there, a lot of fun, a lot of caring, and a place where, I think it was Emily mentioned, faculty come. They come to take a break because they too are under stress. During many different episodes on campus, students will come to 580 because they don't feel safe on campus. Students are from highly monitored communities like the formerly incarcerated, or Palestinian students, or Afghani students, who don't share our Christian understanding, but they share the need for community and a place where they can be seen as fully human and not as something to be discarded. People with no faith or with a worldview that's very antithetical to ours still are welcomed, are offered the opportunity to be fully themselves. Most of the time they will come back and say, look, what can I do? I had three Iranian women who came in one day and I said, welcome. They're like, oh, thank you. They're in their medical scrubs. Like, so where are you from? Well, we're dentists from Iran, women, Iranian dentists, hear me, who are here on a preceptorship so they can get fully licensed here so they don't have to go back to Iran, where they can continue to pursue their professional goals in peace and in safety. And so they found this space. They come and study for their qualifying exams. They are offering to make food. So there is an exchange. And the last thing I'm going to say before I open up to questions or comments from the students, if anybody else wants to speak, is that next week we'll be also here with students who come from 580, Corelli and Jeffrey, who are part of the IDEAS, the Undocumented Student Advocacy Group, who will be coming to talk about how they're using their faith to build a nationwide, actually, effort to acknowledge the work of undocumented scholars at university, but specifically within the UC system, so they can actually get paid, get some kind of financial compensation for all the work they do. They will be joined by Kent Wong, who is a colleague of mine. We've worked together now 14 years, who is internationally known for his labor work, for his advocacy for immigrants and refugees, and he will be here along with the students. So I invite you to come back next week to see how we take what happens at 5-8 and bring it into our communities and into the world. So that again, it's not just an insular space where students come and get food and, expect to be taken care of. It's where they take that and they go out into the world to bless the world with what they've received. So on that, thank you again for your support, your attention, and if anyone has questions, comments, anything you want to say, okay, I'm going to start with John and then Shirley.
Okay. Well, at the risk of opening cans of worms, I'm a fairly recent person around here compared to him.